Finding the most effective implementation of technology in architecture. Technology and the body have been closely intertwined since as far back as pre-human times. The definition of technology is inherently ill-defined. Although technology can be seen as tools and ideas as an extension of the capabilities of the body, technology often can have impacts on and influence the development of the body. In his essay, Architecture, Technology, and the Body, from the Pre-Human to the Post-Human, Jonathan Hale proposes that technological advancements were essential to the development of the modern human. Likewise, as architecture progressed through movements, new technology established and improved the method of how the architect was able to conceive of and establish architectural works. During the 20th century, computer-assisted design began to take a more prominent role in architectural theory and practice, as did the discourse of whether technology was detrimental or helpful toward the furthering of architecture. More specifically, an idea that has been contested for decades is whether analog or digital methods of drafting and planning buildings are more effective, and if technology has diminished the ability of the architect to create meaningful space. However, several architects and architectural theorists throughout the years have shown that both analog and digital means of practice have strengths and weaknesses, and that a balance of both are necessary for the successful and innovative architect in the modern age. Analog technologies and architecture. The advancements in technology has given architects a new and efficient tool to create digital models and sketches of their projects. Digital tools have become very popular in the world of architecture. However, some might argue that these tools have led architecture to become unimaginative and dull. Juhani Pallasmaa, Finnish architect and theorist, believes that the use of analog models and drawings are more effective devices for creating innovative and engaging designs. According to Pallasmaa, it is important for architects to produce designs under the consideration of all five senses of the human body, rather than just one, sight. Working digitally has driven architects to rely solely on sight, causing a detachment between the designer and their work. An existential experience in the design process is essential. Pallasmaa quotes, "The hand with a charcoal pencil or pen creates a direct haptic connection between the object, its representation, and the designer's mind." End quote. With the use of analog tools, architects are able to convey certain qualities in their projects that computers simply cannot. Computer-generated designs are not able to evoke the same experiences and emotions that handmade designs are able to create. Working with physical materials, as Pallasmaa states, creates, quote, "authentic architectural experiences," end quote, which produces effective works of architecture. CAD technologies and architecture. CAD, or computer-aided design, advances and heightens architecture as an art by allowing design to be approached from a different perspective, freed from ideal geometry and the constraints of old analog technologies. When talking about the development of CAD and its use as a tool in architecture, it is hard to avoid discussing architect Greg Lynn. Lynn is a designer who formed Form in 1992 with the intent of challenging how architects viewed CAD as a design tool. Lynn's approach to CAD is articulated perfectly in his quote, "Too many people understand the computer in terms of facilitating expression or in terms of pseudoscientific system, when it is more simply just another design medium." End quote. Rather than viewing technology as an extension of the architect's will, Lynn uses technology more like a medium, allowing it to influence the design. Lynn advocates for CAD, saying that it allows for architects to skip the arduous process of drawing repetitive systems in analog mediums, and that CAD allows for flowing forms that are dependent on integrals rather than ideal points within a Cartesian plane. Before CAD, architects were limited to what they could physically model and draw with analog technologies, which led to geometry being based on ideal ratios, but CAD allows architects to make spaces beyond human context and based only on the limitations of physics. An example of the advantages of CAD can be seen in Lynn's 1999 project, Korean Presbyterian Church in New York. In this project, the walls of the church point towards the altar at different angles. These angles were created by treating the walls as different vectors in a CAD software. This gives the church a sense of direction and flow without the design being modular. The Korean Presbyterian Church stands as a testament of how the integration of CAD into architecture allows for more freedom and even a deeper connection to the humanity of architecture. Like Lynn's other work, rather than using the human body as a ratio of distances to be put into a plan, he uses the human body to plot vectors of movement and sight throughout the structure. Advances in material technology. Technological advancements have helped facilitate the work of architects everywhere, from new 3D rendering and architectural visualization software such as Rhino, SketchUp, Maya, 3ds Max, etc., to virtual reality gadgets and drones that help not only clients but architects picture the finished environment before the first brick is installed. Is it clear to say that these advancements have pushed to create new materials and designs to what would be deemed impossible 50 years ago? To compare, in the early 90s, architects were starting to experiment with less angular lines and more organic, curvy shapes for buildings. Monuments like the Guggenheim Museum, created in 1997, made contemporary architects like Frank Lloyd Wright seem ahead of their time. Though Lloyd didn't seem to use any digital software for his plans, instead, quote, Wright adopted three main premises to design the Guggenheim: influence how people moved through its layout, considered the configuration of galleries as differentiated social spaces, and assured the organization of spaces and artwork a decisive role in the experience of the visitor, end quote. His drawings of organic structures then inspired the normality and became signature styles of many, such as Zaha Hadid, who, in her time with her group, did indeed use the help of technology for her projects. Moreover, CAD software enabled architects and visionaries to develop and execute new plans to support buildings like the Sharp Center for Design, which was inspired by Le Corbusier's Ville-Savoie, where he established one of the first modern houses on slender concrete supports. Though like Wright, visionary Richard Buckminster Fuller, seen as a futurist in the 20th century, developed not only geodesic domes but also self-revealing diagrids which helped support the City Hall in London, developed in 2002. Conclusion. The advancements of technology has corresponded with the advancements in the architectural field. It has led to the innovation and creation of complex architectural works. For example, Frank Gehry's Walt Disney Concert Hall is a feat of technological development, specifically through the use of his groundbreaking digital programming and analog technology. In the preliminary stages of the design process, Gehry's use of the pen and paper allowed his imaginative ideas to become represented physically. Given the infinite freedom of drawing, Gehry portrayed abstract forms, not limited by any volumetric value. However, with the use of digital technology, he was able to translate these two-dimensional lines into the novel three-dimensional forms evident in his final building. The design process is an example of balanced use of pre-modern and modern technology to fill in the limitations of both. The analog technology was a space for Gehry to express his intuitive, premature architectural ideas. However, pen and paper was an effective means of testing his ideas with the laws of nature. The use of digital technology allowed Gehry to visualize and simulate a structure that would physically uphold his complicated composition of forms according to the laws of the natural world. Thus, an intelligent architect is able to adapt either a pre-modern or modern technology to their methodology in order to increase the efficiency and effectiveness of their design process. And as long as architects continue pushing technology to communicate their novel, forward-thinking ideas, technology will follow and innovate to meet these demands.